Look, all I'm gonna say is if you listen to a YouTuber like me who plays video games and you use that as your compass for life, you're even dumber than I am. The first baby video is hitting a lot earlier than most people would have expected. This due to a combination of things. The first thing, what? Dude, this is the greatest. I mean, I was gonna say it's the greatest gift I could get. That's not true, as we have found out this week. However, it is still very helpful. I do appreciate it. And really the way that this happens, so today's Saturday, and we had the baby on Monday. Stayed in the hospital Monday and Tuesday. We were discharged on Wednesday. Mother and daughter both healthy. I was going to say happy and healthy. I would say that's fair, but occasionally they both go through little periods where they're not having an amazing time, either due to surgery recovery or, you know, pooping their pants. Yesterday, Kate was like, now that we have the baby, are you thinking about getting back to work? And, you know, it had been percolating in my head a little bit. First couple of days were chaos. Like, you know, the delivery took place, and then immediately from then, you're like, what's that sound? Oh my god, what's this? Okay, you know, the doctor's like, do you know how to put on a diaper? And I'm like, yeah, and then my hands are shaking, and I can't quite get it on. Then you're like, okay, now do that 17 times in the next 24 hours, and you're good to go, and you're calling nurses, and I'm sleeping in a glorified gym mat on the ground. Nurses come in every 17 minutes and go, oh, there's a little bit of blood on the hospital bed. We got to check you out. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? But really, we both came to the same conclusion, which is, you know, I'm not getting back to 100% capacity today or anytime in the very near future, but we definitely have hit the point where things are calm now. You know, we got a good routine, and I gotta say it, I don't want to make people jealous. I think we got a good baby. Healthy head size, which was, you know, immediately, I think everybody's like, when the kid's born, you know, they're like, oh my god, it's my child. But I was like, oh no, that's my child. She's got a noggin, that's all I'm saying. And honestly, like, she sleeps a lot, at least for this newborn period. Things can always change, but we've been tired and busy, but otherwise, like, it's pretty low stress. We're sleep deprived to a pretty decent extent. Even, like, I can't really complain. I probably had like 4 or 5 hours of sleep last night, but it's like, it's not good sleep, because, you know, like, you're going to bed at midnight, mostly just because your body's like, I'm done. We did what I think is probably a classic new parent thing, where like the first 24 hours of having the baby, you're like, this thing is going to spontaneously combust. It will implode in some horrible manner, and it's going to be our fault if we're not staring at this thing like 24/7. So Kate would stare at the baby for like 4 hours, and then be like, I'm tired. Can you stare at the baby? And I'd be like, yes, ma'am. And you just sort of, you know, you realize after you got, you know, 24 hours of observing this child, you're like, it's mostly just burps and occasionally explosive flatulence, and then they go like, and then they kind of roll over and soothe themselves. And if they're hungry, you pick them up and feed them. But yeah, you go to bed at like midnight, and then you set an alarm for like 2, and you're like, this is feeding number 1. And you set an alarm for 5, and you're like, this is feeding number 2. And then, you know, we're trading off on the feedings, which is fair, but I will say I have a distinct biological disadvantage. But, you know, like when Kate's up and she's feeding the baby, I'm waking up a little bit, and when I'm up and feeding the baby, Kate's waking up a little bit, because it's not, you don't just feed the baby, roll over, go back to sleep. You know, the baby cries a little bit. And then, you know, you do the smell test, and you're like, oh, it's got a diaper. When you change the diaper, she cries like crazy. But then also, like, a lot of laundry and a lot of dishes. I would never dispute that. Not that many people told me about the dishes. Telling people what parental methods you're using is a good way to get in an argument. You gotta feed the baby this way. You even not so much even just the manner of feeding, like whether you're using like some natural feeding or some formula or something like that, but even like, you know, the way you hold the baby during feeding. Oh, you're doing the sideways cradle hold. You gotta do the football hold. Like the mommy blogosphere kind of scares the crap out of me. I don't really want to invite that evil into my life. The baby has a large head, such a large head, in fact, that the doctors were slightly concerned on birth until they saw the size of my head. Which is, it's hard to tell because I was wearing like a surgical cap at the time, you know, for sanitary reasons. They didn't want any of my hair to fall out and impede what was going on downstairs. But that's a joke, but also the real reason, I suppose. But yeah, they were like, whoa, big-headed baby. And then they were like, does dad have a big head? And I'm like, I've got a big head. I'm sure they hear that a lot. So they went, like, the hats fit you? And I said, one size fits all hats normally do not fit me. And then it's like they breathed a sigh of relief. They were like, okay, this baby's probably fine. You know, at the hospital, they're like, do you have a pediatrician? And I'm like, were you supposed to have a pediatrician lined up in advance? And they're like, oh, do you have a family doctor? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, are they taking patients for in-person screenings during COVID? And I'm like, I don't know, nobody told us to look this stuff. They're like, you gotta go see a pediatrician 1 week after the baby. So anyway, I was calling up pediatricians and we got it sorted. But the messages that I was leaving on their voicemail was like, hey, this is... my wife and I had a baby, like, and I'm not, like, stupid, you know, I'm just stupid because of sleep deprivation and also it being unfamiliar territory. Half of the messages are just, like, rambling, 2-minute long macaroni, and then at the end I'm just like, I'm sorry, just call us. Yeah, so this morning, you know, I'm a little sleep deprived. When you first get the baby, you are concerned that you're gonna murder it accidentally, forgetting that, you know, you yourself were a baby, and talking to my parents who are here and you know, they were like, they're telling me stuff that they did when they were parents, and I was like, that was legal back then? So check this out. I didn't know this. Apparently this was common wisdom in 1988. You give a baby a pacifier, then when they spit the pacifier out, it goes on the ground. My mom was like, oh yeah, you used to spit your pacifier out. Your father and I would just pick it up, put it in our mouths, and then put it back in your mouth. Just if you're gonna put it in your mouth, at least just rinse it under the sink for a second. It's crazy. The other thing that was kind of unexpected about having the baby is like, A, it changes you, but it also definitely changed the way that I looked at my parents. I wasn't really like a problem child, but you know, there've been times where like, you know, my mom is like, call me when you get there, and then I get there and I'm like, woo, and then it's like 12 hours later and I haven't called her. And now I'm like, as soon as I had that baby, I was like, I gotta tell my mom I'm sorry. Just picturing, you know, my daughter, like I was like, hey, yeah, you can go to Burning Man, just text me when you get there, and then, you know, or about the parents after them. See, I'm just being honest, I can't really talk. I have... Even like when my wife and I have conversations with each other, we're so sleep deprived that, like, here's a classic sentence that like my wife will say to me right now. There's a thing in the thing. Could you get it for me? And then I go, yeah, sure. And then 3 seconds later I go, what'd you just ask me to do? And then she goes, I don't remember. Which is scary. Because for all the things at the hospital, you know, they go over so many different safety precautions, obviously. You know what they do after that? They go, hey, bring your car around to the front. Bring your 4,000-pound death machine up to the front. We're going to strap your baby into a roller coaster seat, and then you're on your way. At no point do they go like, are you okay to drive? Because you've been sleeping on... you know, a 1/4-inch piece of plywood for 3 days, being woken up at random intervals like you're in, you know, you're a prisoner of war or something like that. They're just like, okay, see ya, we need the bed. By the way, our treatment at the hospital was very good. Monday was like, is a wash, you know? You have the kid, you're emotional, everybody's emotional, nobody remembers anything, it's overwhelming. The nurses come in every 2 seconds, they're like, hey, if you want the baby to live, here's a list of 900 things we're gonna tell you to do. And you're like, yeah, I want the baby to live, can you go over that again? And they're like, I gotta go. And then Wednesday we took her home, and that was just like, you know, grandparents coming over, and Kate's parents in particular were like, not that my parents don't love their granddaughter, but I, you know, because I'm the son-in-law to Kate's parents, I've never seen them so like kind of lovey-dovey. Like they're in love with this human being. It's very touching to see. I think probably like everybody when they meet a baby, they're not gonna be like, oh, you guys got a bad one. But it feels like when people say you guys got a good baby, they're actually being like very legitimate with us. They're like, does it have any problems feeding? We're like, nah, feeds like a dream. Does it use the bathroom regularly? Yeah. So I'm like, she's lost weight, but it's within the normal range. And they're like, you got a good baby, don't tell anybody. And I'm telling everybody. It's crazy as well how quickly you adapt. Like on day one, you know, and again, you might say like, oh, if I were in a situation, I wouldn't do this because I know everything. But like, so day one in the hospital, the baby threw up a little bit. But after she threw up, she was kind of going like, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna press the call button to get the nurse in here. So you press the call button, it opens up like an intercom. They're like, hey, it's the nurse, how can I help you? And you're like, I think our baby is maybe gonna die. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll be right over, sir. So they meander their way over. They've seen everything there is to see, so they look at the baby. They're like, the baby's fine, because I've got her on her side, and I'm kind of like burping her to get the, you know, vomit out of her throat or whatever. And the nurse, I swear to God, said, you're not hitting her hard enough. And that was kind of like, oh, I see what this is going to be like then. So I think, you know, you expect that babies are going to be, you know, fragile, and I guess they are. But also, you know, we were being so delicate, like when you put them into their little baby suits, you're going like, you're getting tweezers out, like, okay, now can you please put your arm in here? Because I don't think it's gonna, I really need you to put your arm in here, sweetie. I don't want to grab it and possibly bend it backwards. Then your arm's gonna grow backwards for the rest of your life, and it's gonna be my fault for doing this. But like when the nurse was like, oh, just smack her. Not on the face, but like, you know, on the back. I was like, how hard should I should I hit the baby on the back when I burp it? And she was like, oh, like you're hitting a bongo. And I was like, first off, we run in very different social circles, because I don't know if I have ever hit a bongo, but I have seen Matthew McConaughey hit a bongo, because I was just kind of going like, you know, tippy taps. She was like, nah, like this, bang, bang, bang. And the kid is just like, you know, say they're loving life, but they don't look like they're any worse for wear. So now, you know, when we're putting the kid in their clothing, it's a lot more like, okay, I'm gonna put your arm in here and do the bad cry if it's really hurting. Because sometimes, you know, there's like, you know, the baby will be like, wah, and you're like, okay, we're gonna observe that. And sometimes it's like racking sobs, and you're like, okay, something's wrong. And you're like, I mean, dude, I hate to say it, because like, again, I think we've been blessed with an uncomplicated baby. As of right now, I'm like, you know, you always hear about parents being like, what do you want? And I'm like, right now, apparently it can change later in the newborn's life, but, you know, for week one, there is no what do you want. You do a quick troubleshooting every single time. How long has it been since they fed? If more than 2 hours, feed them. If it has not been more than 2 hours, you're going to check that poo-poo diaper. There's probably going to be poo in there. Or pee, and they're gonna change it, and they're gonna be fine. The third one is they're like random baby crying. So you just pick them up and kind of rock them a little bit, and usually they're like, I'm good to go. And again, like the whole week is like a huge blur, dude. Like I don't even know what time it is. What time is it? It's 2:52 p.m. You're emotionally out of sorts, but very, very rewarded as well. Don't get me wrong. My personality changed a little bit in like an instant. Like, as soon as we got home, I was like, you would think that I'd be like, let's get some sleep. I was like, we gotta do some dang dishes. There were like 3 cups in the sink. I'm like, this is outrageous. You think I'm gonna raise my daughter in a household that has 3 cups in the sink? I honestly think, and I'm not that, you know, much of a cleanliness obsessed person, but I honestly think that one of the hard parts for us is gonna be adjusting to the idea that, like, you're gonna be busy with the kid, maybe relax on the housework a little bit. Again, this is day 5. They had me drive home on day 2. What were they thinking? I know they got other stuff to worry about at the hospital. I don't know if parents leaving the hospital are more likely to get into like a minor traffic accident than, you know, the average person. Because here's the thing. Was I tired when I was driving home? Oh yeah, like pretty exhausted, without a doubt. But on the other hand, I also was imbued with this unbelievable sense of the responsibility that had fallen on my shoulders. I don't think I've ever driven like more slowly and safely home than that first drive in my entire life. Now, if a wild animal had jumped out onto the road 200 feet away from me, I don't know if my eyes could have sent the message to my brain fast enough to stop. But in terms of the actual mechanics of the drive, it was very slow and safe. I do feel like, though, and maybe this is, you're going to be like, oh, a classic Canadian thinking everything should be just paid for. I really feel like the hospital should, like, pay for your Uber. I don't know. Now that I think about it for more than 2 seconds, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Because, like, if you go into labor, what are you going to do? Be like, oh, sorry, honey, it's surge pricing. And then, you know, if you drive your car there because you're in labor, but they make you take an Uber home because you're tired, how are you going to go get your car back? You're going to take an Uber to the hospital like a week later and then be like, that's my car. I guess it just makes sense the way they're doing it. Basically, I'm just saying I was tired. Shared a lot of knowing glances with the other fathers in the maternity ward. And I gotta tell you, I don't know if I would call it stealing. I took a lot from that fridge. Every day, they put in like bunch of juice, bunch of like single serving cheese. I was like, if I'm staying here, I'm gonna get my money's worth. Which is kind of zero, but kind of like a lot more than zero. So again, we've been kind of like subdividing the labor. So like whoever's less tired when we go to bed, you know, I'll be like, you should take like the first couple of feedings tonight, and then I'll take the ones that are after that. And then that way we end up getting a little trade-off where we actually get like, you know, 4 hours of uninterrupted sleep, which is honestly like 4 hours is not that bad. There's times where I would describe myself as being like an 8 out of 10 tired. And then I talk to my wife for like 30 seconds, and I'm like, you know what? You should get some sleep. You are not making any sense. And there's times where, you know, she's been like, you know, I'm pretty tired, but you should get some sleep because you're getting a little grumpy. And I'm like, I recognize the grumpiness, and I very much appreciate your deference to my sleeping right now. Okay, see you soon, you know? Before this week, I had respect for single parents, but it was kind of like one of those things that's like a line item. It's like, yeah, of course I got respect for single parents. It's hard. But now going through this situation with the two of us and realizing like how much stuff there is to do, and this is like with a newborn, not even like a child that has to, you know, oh, you gotta wake them up, you gotta cook them breakfast, you got school to drop them off at, and then, oh, the principal called and they've been, you know, sniffing glue sticks again, and then get them to soccer practice, and oh, we're not even at that level. And there's still like a ton of stuff to do. So this one, you know, this one goes out to all the single parents out there making it work. One of the superficial things that people may worry about when their friends become new parents is that they're just going to start complaining about things all the time, even though it really is a self-inflicted loss of free time. I think that's why it's good to have a network of parents, which we don't really have right now, but I've enjoyed a little solidarity on Twitter with other people that are like, hey, wait for this to happen. Oh, you don't even know what it's like. Wait for this to happen. It's like when parents talk to other parents, it's a good opportunity to share stories in an environment where everybody's supportive about it. But if you're constantly bringing up your kids to, you know, people who clearly have no interest in it, you kind of become like the guy who's always talking about fantasy football. I'm really amazed that there is not a smart diaper. If it hasn't been invented yet, is it necessary? No, not really. It's the 21st century. It's 2020. I can track a pizza from Domino's every step of the way via GPS coordinates down to the meter. But in order to find out whether or not my kid pooped, I gotta take off their onesie, zip it all the way down, you know, then undo the diaper and then look at it. I'm not saying it's that hard, but it's also like, come on, you know? Is it that hard to go to Domino's and get your own food? I also think that it actually would provide an interesting use, because I'm not saying like, oh, I hate it, was such a huge waste of my time to go upstairs and, you know, check this baby's diaper constantly and get like false negatives or whatever, but baby here doing good stuff. Sleeping, not through the night, but do a feeding at like midnight. Kate handles 3 o'clock, I handle 6 o'clock, and then, like, you know, we both wake up at 9 o'clock. It's not so bad. The only thing is, it's like Schrodinger's diaper. You know, you never know until you check the diaper whether it's going to be a 30-second diaper check or a 30-minute diaper check. A wet diaper, not that bad. A dirty and wet diaper combined with maybe a little bit of leakage, that's where you're... I mean, I'm not going to draw you a diagram, but you can imagine that where things take a little bit more time. And then doing it by phone flashlight at 5 in the morning when you've been asleep for 3.5 hours only. That's where it gets a little spicy, but I'm not complaining. I don't know what the milestones are for a week-old baby, but I'd say we're getting some new expressions. I think we're getting some new sounds. Eyes opening wider and longer. Every extra day on this planet is like another 12% of her life. That's crazy, right? I'm trying to think, what's 12% of my life? 4.2 years or something. That's a big change, you know, 4.2 years. Really puts it into perspective that like one day of her life is worth like, you know, an undergraduate degree in mine. So there's changes, you know, they're maybe a little small, but definitely perceptible. You know, getting a little easier every day. Routines are getting set up. Then there's just a lot of like, you know, you and your other parent hovering over the baby going, oh my God, is this sound normal? And spoilers, I mean, I'm sure there's sounds that are not normal, but there's ones that are normal that wouldn't seem normal at first glance, I think. Like when you bottle feed the baby and she goes, that's just, she's loving the product so much she can't get enough. She's just slurping it down. A lot of downtime with a newborn. It's just unpredictable downtime. You'll go for like a 6-hour period. I've gotten off so easy sometimes. Kate will be like, you know, I'm kind of like, could I have some time to myself? I want to take a shower and like, you know, clean up a little bit. And I'm like, sure, I'll watch the baby. And then my period of watching the baby is literally just like her sitting next to me for 4 hours watching TV. And then she's like, oh, thanks for watching her. And I'm like, it was my pleasure. And sometimes in a 4-hour window, you got like, she wants to feed 6 times, and you know, there's been 3 diaper changes. And can I tell you, I had my first taste of dad energy today, and it was, I don't know, I'm scared of myself. We had our daughters 1 week from hospital. This is a word that a lot of people don't like. I'm using it not in the medical way, but rather in the release from an institution way. Our daughter was discharged a week ago. Not from the womb, from the hospital. She was discharged from the womb 9 days ago. So we had our 1 week appointment where really you take your, you know, baby to the doctor, and then the doctor weighs them and, you know, goes like, what is the poop like? Is it more yellow or yellowish green? And you're like, yellow? And they're like, ooh. And I'm like, I mean yellowish green. She hits you with some trick questions too. Is it seedy? I go, no. How could it be seedy? She's not eating seeds, she's eating milk. Then she goes, oh, would you describe some of the passage as having small curds in it? And I was like, now you're talking. Yeah, I would say there occasionally are small curd-like seeds. We're supposed to be there at 11:30. We did not get there at 11:30, okay? On our way there at 11:30. It's only 15 minutes away. So I say, hey, Kate, you should really call the doctor's office so that they know we're going to be late. She calls them. They go, ooh, let us call you back. And then they canceled our appointment. Now, I want to be clear. This is kind of an everybody sucks here. We were indeed late for our appointment. And, you know, there's kind of an adjustment period with a newborn where you're like, hey, normally with 2 adults, we should probably leave by like, you know, half an hour in advance. And then you're about to put her in the car seat and you hear like some diarrhea come out. So that was what put us a little bit over time. Kind of not fair for the doctor, for sure, to have to, you know, deal with that. At the same time, I was also like, this creature has been on the earth for 9 days, and we're 15 minutes late. Seems a little bit egregious to me. What did I do? Well, they were like, come back next week. If they had said come back tomorrow, I would have understood. I think that's an appropriate, you know, pill to have to swallow for being a little bit late in that situation. And I said, yeah, we'll come back next week. We'll make an appointment. Made our appointment, immediately got on the horn with a new pediatrician. And I was like, hey, look, I'll level with you. I may have finessed the call a little bit. I left out some key details. I was like, we were going to have our 1 week appointment with our GP today. And then she just bumped us. And they were like, oh, that's not good. Normally it would be really hard to get in on such a short basis, but we'll see what we can do. And I was like, yeah, let's go. So we'll see how that works out. But I felt the dad rage rising inside of me. I was like, you know, we have to sit in the... And I know that this is not fair, again, because I hate when people are late. But I would also maybe be like, you know, they did just have a baby 9 days ago and they're 15 minutes late. That's in the tolerant window to me. Number of times, you know, we show up for our doctor's appointment at the right time, and then they go ahead, have a seat. And I say, well, you know, in my head, you know, the appointment's at 1, we're here at 1, we don't get called into the office until 1:40. I don't go, hey, can you just cancel this appointment? I'll be back, hey, no, I'll just be back on Tuesday, okay? No, I'm not worried about your schedule. Just have me back on Tuesday. It's your fault. It's your fault that you didn't get me in when you said you were going to get me in. Basically, you mess with me, I don't care if I got a searing abdominal pain I need to get checked out. If I'm late for the appointment, guess I'll die. That's my fault. But you mess with the bloodline, you mess with La Familia, we might cut you out of the loop. I'll tell you, it brings out a different side of you for 2 reasons. One is like, it's your child, right? When it's you, you know, you can weather the slings and arrows of an uncaring society. When it's your child, you're like, what do you mean they don't have vanilla ice cream? You don't have vanilla ice cream? That's my daughter's favorite ice cream flavor, is vanilla. What kind of ramshackle operation are you running here, Baskin and/or Robbins? But then the other thing is like, you know, in a normal circumstance, you know, pre-baby, if that happened, I'd be like, whatever. That's my bad. I was a little late. In this one, I was like, you're telling me I was elbow deep in fecal matter for 10 minutes, you know, in a rush, being like, go, just to be told, like, nah, we can't fit you in today anymore. The thing that burned me up even more, I recognize, again, we're late, she's busy, and, you know, moreover, every time, you know, if we're 15 minutes late, then she's got to, you know, maybe stay 15 minutes longer, and that's time taken out of her life, which is not necessarily fair. But I was like, we had to like almost argue with the front desk staff just to get the appointment because they're not really seeing people because of COVID. And I'm like, what do you mean you're too busy? Too busy making telephone calls that are like, have you been outside of the country in the past 7? Anyway, I do recognize, by the way, you might say, NL, you got some Karen energy. I'm recognizing a little bit of the Karen energy. What I did not do is say, excuse me, can I speak to the doctor right now? I got something to say. What I did instead is went behind her back and set up an appointment with another pediatrician that can get paid out by BC Medical Services plan instead of her. It's called the free market, baby. And oh, baby, we're going to have a lot of elective stuff done, let me tell you. All sorts of nutritional consultations. Oh, the billable hours will be through the roof. But regardless, here we are. It's been a good day, don't get me wrong. You know, we just drove back home, and then I was like just hanging out with my daughter on the couch. Conversation was a little one-sided. We got a special guest here today. It's our baby. Hello, baby. She doesn't talk too much yet. She's... I don't know if you heard that. I think she just farted. Comedic timing runs in the family. I'm on baby watch. So I got a little baby... I mean, we shouldn't probably call it baby prison. I don't know how to describe it. I guess you could call it like a playpen sort of deal. It's like a big soft mattress and then a bunch of mesh walls surrounding it. It is rewarding though. I'm not being too negative about it. Of course, it's a privilege in the first place, and you know, I'm happy that I work from home so I can help out my wife in this regard instead of, sorry, honey. I mean, dude, you ever realize, like, I know that this is a hotly charged topic. Men in like the 50s had it too easy. In the 40s, you know, might have gotten drafted to go fight in the Second World War. I mean, in the 50s, I guess it could have happened with the Korean War. I'm not trying to make it any kind of, like, objective statement. It's more so, like, you know, when I hear stories about the 1950s when women give birth, it's always like, I was in the hospital for 20 hours, and my husband was in a room with rich mahogany and plush upholstered chairs, smoking cigars and drinking brandy out of snifters, you know, with the other members of the Skull and Bones. Nowadays, there's an expectation you're gonna participate a little bit more in the process. I was very flippant when I came into this child rearing thing about diapers. I'd always thought that people were, especially, you know, when guys are talking about like, oh, I never want to change a diaper, it's so gross. I was like, you're a big baby. Pun intended, I suppose. Changing diapers actually sucks, but it's way less for the grossness of the poop. You just get a couple of baby wipes and, you know, you're done. It's way more for the fact that, I don't know if this is true of all babies, but our newborn struggles like crazy during the diaper process. To the point, like, I'm telling you, this baby is going to be the next Harry Houdini. You know how he is always escaping from straitjackets? during the application process of the straitjacket, he struggles, and that creates like a little extra space when it's actually done up that he can actually, you know, fit his arms and stuff through in order to get out. That is 100% one-to-one exactly what our baby does with her diaper. As I'm putting the diaper on, she struggles, and then eventually I get it what I think is tight, and I'm like, fine, we're good. And then, you know, 3 hours later, I'm like, why is her shirt that was once white now brown? And it's because she Houdini'd me, dude. Yeah, that's you. Right, baby? You did just eat. So I would think you're maybe in, like, sleep territory. You might be in diaper territory, but we're trying to give mommy a chance to take a little nap because you're, like, ravenous. You're like, Joey Chestnut here, trying to set the breast milk Nathan's famous, I don't know, that joke didn't really land, but you kind of got the spirit of it at least. She's already, like, opening her eyes and, you know, like, very wide. Like, the first couple of days she would open her eyes, but it was like a little squint. It was like a hungover kind of look, like, what do you want from me? You know, I just went through some stuff. Now she's, like, expressive. She even has, like, she's got little smiles and, like, little worried looks. I don't know if they're merely reflexes, but it's very, it's unbelievably cute, and you're also like, yo, we did that. By having extremely over-exaggerated reactions to things, maybe the baby is learning our reactions. In many ways, I actually think that being a YouTuber is probably good practice for being a parent. Because whenever anything happens, instead of having like a normal adult reaction to it, where you're like, oh, that just happened, you go, what? Can you believe that just a baby? Can you believe that just happened? Okay, we're back. And we have, at least temporarily, a soothed baby. As soon as I said that, she's fussing a little bit. But it is what it is. I mean, I've said it a few times here. There's really, when it comes to the baby, there's only like a couple of baby flowchart options. Diaper, food, and unknown. So this is starting to strike me as like a food craving. Oh no. Baby, give me one room and we'll see how you feel. Sometimes she's just settling down to go to sleep. We'll get there. Okay. Alright, we'll take another soothe break here. I hate to admit it, but, you know, when the baby makes a bad diaper at, like, 2 p.m., I'm like, oh, look at the baby, woo, woo. When it makes a bad, or the worst, is, like, 5 a.m., I change the diaper, and as soon as I put the new diaper on, I hear them dirty that diaper as well, and I'm just like, I hate this. It does cross your mind, like, could just fall asleep, and then when my wife wakes up, be like, I don't know, it was clean when I did it. Yesterday was the second time we'd seen Kate's parents since we brought the baby home, and immediately Kate's mom was like, you should be using formula. Don't let the baby sit like this. Let the baby go like this. You know, the baby should... And of course, I don't know what's happening, because all this is, like, in Korean. But then, you know, I get told about it later. And I don't want to put any, you know, any shame on Kate's mom for that. I think it's just two different styles. But I will say, Kate's mom, I guess, was like, isn't the baby cold? And Kate was like, no, she's not cold. She's like a human battery. Don't worry. We take her temperature all the time. We make sure it's acceptable in here. And then she's like, no, I think she's cold. So she put a blanket on the baby, like a little cloth on the baby. Then we ate lunch. I looked over like 2 minutes later, and somehow the cloth had ended up like directly over the baby's face. And I was like, oh, and I got up and, like, you know, took the cloth off. Because this is a potentially dangerous situation, right? The baby was fine. But I was like, man, oh man. We almost had a situation there that would have been incendiary. You know, the backseating is one thing. When you backseat the parenting and then it ends up with the child, you know, suffering a lack of oxygen for any length of time. I guess and I'm not trying to put any negativity on Kate's mom here. It's just, you know, someone's got to lose in the anecdote wars, I guess. My mother-in-law, via stubbornness, accidentally put the baby in, like, maybe not mortal danger, but a situation. Here's the thing. When it's your kid, it activates a different part of you. We're oversharing right now. I've said before, like, we don't want to share it. And I definitely am still in that camp. Like, I definitely don't want to you know, make vlogs of like, oh, it's her first word, look at her poop consistency today, and like that stuff. Especially, like, our newborn is the cutest, but all newborns are kind of generic, right? They're all just, you know, I'm not gonna say you've seen one baby, you've seen them all, but it's kind of like a character creator in an RPG from the late 1990s. It's like, okay, there's like 6 babies, fair enough. The back seating is, because other parents give helpful tips. They say things like, and by the way, if this is about to be at your expense, just own it, is my advice. But other parents or people that have current newborns or toddlers, they're like, hey, you know, we also struggled with this, and we also had a fun time with this, try this. And we're like, you know what, that's great advice. Some of the back seating that comes from gamers is like, why would you ever do this? This is insane. Delete this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, man, why would you take a break from retweeting NVIDIA's official Twitter account to win a video card to, like, be mad about something you clearly have no expertise in? There's a couple of Reddit posts that I'm biting my tongue on, but I'll rest assured, I sent it to the Discord and we all had a mighty good laugh. Oh, we all had a mighty good laugh and said, look at this weirdo. I don't have any kids myself, but I would like to think that if I had kids, I would simply raise them to simply live by a code. If they ever deviated from me, I would punish them henceforth. You know, it's like they learn how to raise their kids from Kingdom of Heaven or something like that. You know, I've long been a proponent that one of the reasons that streamers and YouTubers get, like, disproportionately burnt out with, like, reactions to their content and, like, anonymous comments and stuff like that. I mean, let me just first take their side and say that a lot of anonymous feedback is quite unfair, I think, and people always assume the worst about people in almost every circumstance. It is part of the job that's, you know, not going anywhere. But then secondarily, I think that one of the reasons that, like, it happens is, you know, if all you do in your life is, like, stream, which describes a lot of streamers, even myself at times, your world becomes, you know, about the size of your middle monitor, and as a result, like, some person you've never met before being rude to you can ruin your day. Whereas, like, if you had a lot of stuff going on, you'd probably be like, shut up, loser, and then just go on living, right? Now that, like, I'm the steward for the life of another human being, I'm like, come on, man. I changed, like, 11 diapers today? You really think I'm gonna let one name plus 9 numbers get in my head because they're like, I think, you know, his butt is stinky. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. I think, like, over the course of the next, I don't know, 10 years, I'll probably end up watching every movie on Netflix 2 times. Hello.
When did I fall asleep?
You fell asleep at around, yeah, maybe 11:15. Chat says, hello, Kate. Does she need a diaper change? I heard her. She was going off. I fed her.
11:10, right?
Yeah, I mean, even after that, I think I fed her one more time. I fed her like 90 milliliters, and she started crying like within 15 minutes after that.
Really?
Yeah, she was like, she pretended to be asleep, and then she pulled an evil baby move, and then was like, it's just a joke nap. Total amount of 120. 120. 90 and then a 30 mil top up.
And then I just woke up, or not just, like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And she was crying. So I guess after 10 minutes of you leaving her upstairs.
She got hungry again? Or she's got a dirty diaper?
She just got the wet diaper.
Okay.
But still, like, she was suckling.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, this is a hungry baby. Hopefully she'll nap a bit, but if she doesn't go down, I can make the stream a little shorter today.
It's okay. Right now she's content.
Right now she's content. You love to hear it.
But I'm
Kate is not content. I understand. She's content, she's just tired. Okay, fair enough. I would describe that as being the new parent experience so far. No, that's our baby. But I feel the need to say this because people on YouTube, they're probably more protective of animals than they are of babies, but they're still very protective of babies, which makes sense. My wife is looking after the baby. Sometimes the baby do be crying, though. You know what I mean? You know, she's hungry. The bottle's being warmed up. It, you know, creates a situation where there's a little period of intermittent warbles, if you will. Should stop momentarily. Because I'll tell you, babies are not complicated, at least in the newborn phase. You know, when an adult is crying, I feel like the solution to that problem is very, very difficult. I think that's why it's very tough to see another adult cry, because for the most part, you're like, oh, this is a symptom of an underlying issue that's going to be a little bit more complicated in order to solve. When you see a baby crying, literally, it could be like inconsolable. It's like, this is the worst I've ever felt in my entire life. You give it the bottle, or you start feeding, and the baby instantly snaps into like, oh, this is good stuff. This is what it's all about right here. I've never been this happy before. When a baby cries, you test its physiological needs. Is there a wet or dirty diaper? Are they hungry? Do they just need soothing, etc., etc.? And if you can't solve the problem like that, I think you just gotta accept, like, the baby do be crying. Steel yourself to the idea that, you know, maybe you're used to looking for solutions for problems, and, you know, in the adult world that actually is a very sensible course of action, but in the baby world, you know, as long as the physiological needs of your child are accounted for, sometimes they do just be crying. You know what's nice about having a newborn is there's like no arguments whatsoever, right? I also feel like, you know, we haven't taken the baby out in public because you're not really supposed to take a baby out in public, I guess, until they're like at least a month old, so they get a little chance to, you know, develop, I don't know, some kind of resistance to the outside world. I'm just going by what my wife says, which is what the books say, okay? Do your own research, sweetie. Regardless, I feel like when a newborn cries, even the most cynical edgelord on earth is like, that's what babies do. They cry. What are you supposed to do? Now, when a toddler cries, or like even older than a toddler cries, I think that's where, when you're out in public, you start to, and I don't think it's fair, but I think that's where you start to be judged a little bit. I think that's where, you know, people might be like, what did you do that made this child so moody, you know? One of the reasons that maybe, because you hate to see in public a situation where like a kid's crying or something like that and the parent gives in. And you know why they're giving in. They're giving in because they're embarrassed that the kid is throwing like a scene in public. So they're like, fine, if you'll be quiet, I'll just give you what you want. I think that personally, I'm well insulated against that. Because I cannot be embarrassed in public as a result of my profession. I already embarrass myself in public. I mean, this is digitally, but, you know, my face is attached to it just about every single day. You gotta remember, I'm exposed to anonymous feedback and criticism every single day of my life. You gotta get the nuclear launch codes to my psyche if you want to embarrass me. You can't just be like, wah, wah. I'm like, yeah, wah, wah. You know, you sound like chat when I forget where the black market is. I've got a little extra defense towards not spoiling my child. Because, like, you can't really spoil a newborn. You can definitely, I don't know when the earliest age you can spoil a child is, but definitely it's like, I'm pretty sure it starts to happen around the toddler age. That's how you end up with the, oh man, My Super Sweet 16. You ever see that show? It's, again, it's kind of a dated reference, but it was a show that used to be on MTV, and they knew what they were doing. They kind of, like, were the pioneers of rage watching. This is also how the show, like, The Simple Life with Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie became popular. You know, it's not a show you watch and go like, oh, these are two cool, relatable people that, like, I'm happy to be watching. You watch it and you go like, oh, look at these idiots, I hate them. But also, yeah, I'll be here Thursday at 8 next week to see, oh, they're gonna work at a donut shop. I wonder how they'll screw this one up, right? My Super Sweet 16 was kind of like part of that first generation of rage watching as well. It was basically like, I feel bad because, you know, they're kids. But you watch the show, you don't really feel like, the kids are spoiled, for sure. But you really watch the show and you go like, man, parents, what are you doing? Kids will be like, you know, you're 16, I get it. You can only turn 16 once in your life. I don't really think it's that big of a deal, but I don't know, maybe I'm just not tapped into that side of the culture. But 16-year-old kids who are literally like, well, first off, it's a given that I'm gonna get like a luxury car for my birthday. So I'd really ideally like to get like a Ferrari, but Daddy, I understand if you can only get me like, you know, a Porsche Carrera, or a Lamborghini Urus. And they would have these like grand plans, you know? There's like, oh, and I want there to be like all the Disney princesses there, and I want, you know, I hate to say it, but the dads would be like, yes, dear, anything for my princess. And you're like, man, you are setting the whole world up to deal with a monster later. That kid is going to become an adult, and they may find themselves in a workplace. I don't know. It depends, I guess, on how much of the estate is left over after you pay for their $475,000 16th birthday party. I think you got an obligation as a parent to introduce boundaries. I think it's very easy to say yes all the time, but maybe it's easy for me to say, because for whatever reason, you know, I never really had those ambitions as a child. I get that it's not so much like a teenage boy thing. A teenage boy stereotype might be more like, you know, I'm gonna get like an old muscle car and fix it up or something like that, but I didn't really dream about that stuff when I was younger, for sure. So when I see somebody so attached to like their fantasy of what a day is going to be like, it's a little unusual to me, but I understand it is fairly common. So you've never, I mean, if you've never had a newborn before, which obviously we hadn't, you are immediately struck by this, like, I am taking care of a living thing that is essentially completely helpless. If they sleep on their stomach, they could end up with an obstructed airway and, you know, suffer serious health consequences. They cannot roll themselves over. That's what we're talking about in terms of helplessness. Like, you know, it'll make you mad, because you ever see like a video of like a horse being born? It kind of shudders out of that cavernous maw, and then it goes like, and like its legs are a little shaky, and then in like 30 seconds it's galloping. It's just a different set of like evolutionary concerns, right? Human beings, you know, we've evolved to, you know, use our intelligence as kind of like our dominant survival factor. Like, it's what separates us and allows us to proliferate to a large extent. You know, you got a big brain. Unfortunately, to have a big brain, you know, be born would pretty much just rip people up from the inside out. So as a result, you know, you got the evolutionary pressure to have that baby a little earlier and then take care of it when it comes out. It's helpless, right? So like I told you, we have this smart sock thing that monitors. It's like a pulse oximeter. It measures heart rate and supposedly oxygen levels, which I do put some stock into, even if it's just for peace of mind. The other night, I woke up at, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 in the morning to feed her. I fed her, I burped her, I changed her diaper, I put her down in the crib. She started making a little bit of a weird noise that would have struck fear into my heart within 48 hours of the birth. I, for real, just looked at her and saw that she was moving and then rolled over to face the wall and go to sleep. I was like, she's probably completely fine, and if something goes wrong, there will be an ear-piercing alarm. I'm not quite at the level of, like, rub some dirt on it and it'll clear right up, but I'm definitely, like, it's healthier, by the way, I think, this way. I know it might seem like, you know, you're being flippant with your child's safety. You know what's been really comforting is Google autocomplete actually, like, completing the query that you were going to suggest. It's just like, oh, so we're not alone. Like the other day, you know, she was breathing a little raggedly, which for an adult you would be like, uh-oh, that's a real problem. For a child, I was like, baby breathing like, and then the first thing that filled in was a pug, and I was like, all right, I think we're fine. If enough people are Googling it that it shows up as like a suggested autocomplete, then I think, I mean, I still check the results to be like, oh no, it's pug baby syndrome. You know, well, you know what? Let's make this even better. There's a better joke in here that's also true to life. You know how, like, everything you Google when you have a symptom as an adult, you know, it takes you to WebMD and then tells you that you've got stage 4 pancreatic cancer? That's, like, the exact opposite of what Googling baby symptoms is. Obviously, like, there's still, like, if things persist, go to a doctor. But for the most part, you could be like, my baby has laser beams shooting out of her eyes, and they'd be like, as long as the laser beams are not hot enough to melt through your concrete walls, or alternatively, she's got some bloodshot in her pupils. Just let it see where it goes. You know, a lot of the baby medical advice online is essentially just chill out. You're gonna be fine, which is very helpful. I will admit, just to have some reassurance in that department. Now, the opposite is also true. You know, as an adult online, if you're like, I'm 35 years old and I eat 2 family-sized bags of, you know, Lay's barbecue chips, watched 3 seasons of Brooklyn Nine-Nine tonight, is that okay? People are like, get it, sister, self-care. If you Google anything about baby psychology, they're like, you're gonna frick that baby up, dude. You're like, oh, my baby winked at me. You've got a mischievous baby. Is it because you've been swaddling backwards? You can't backward swaddle a baby. They're gonna end up being mischievous. It's like a complete inversion of the adult Google results. I'm becoming like a really good diaper changer. That's what I'm gonna say. We had, you know, a lot of those diaper blowouts I've discussed. I do have to admit that I think with the benefit of hindsight, it was less that there was like an explosive diarrhea. I'm eating, and more that, you know, my diaper was affixed in a fashion that, I mean, to be honest, you know, having never affixed diapers before prior to like 3 weeks ago, I think it's understandable that I was a little bit of a novice at it. But I've reached, in my opinion, journeyman status. None of these diapers are leaking. But I have Googled, you know, because Dr. Google is there for you at all times. I have Googled many times, is it possible to make a diaper too tight? Can you break your baby's hips or screw up their development by having the diaper on too tight? A lot of baby advice will irritate you, though. Like what I saw on the Huggies website is a diaper is too loose if you can fit your whole hand in it. And I was like, yeah, no kidding. I don't know if you need a lesson in relative widths, but the width of a molecule of fecal matter and the width of a 31-year-old male's hand, there's a marked difference there, but surely there's got to be a middle ground. But they were like, it's too tight if you can't even fit one finger between, you know, the infant and the diaper. I was like, okay, don't get me wrong, maybe that's a good rule of thumb, but like, some people out there, not gonna name names, have got markedly tiny hands. I'm also like, now even I'm freaking out because I'm like, wait a minute, isn't like the width of a finger is like the same as the width of a hand? Anyway, long story short, I just tightened that son of a gun up. This is the fastest time, I believe, that, like, you know, in human development. So we see changes constantly. Like, we see changes day to day. But they're not the kind of changes that you get, like, super excited about, I think, if you're not the parents, or the family, at least. We're like, oh, she's really opening her eyes a lot. Oh, she's tracking. Oh, that might be, like, a genuine smile. You know what's crazy, dude? Daycare. And I know, like, this is becoming a bit that, you know, if you look at my demo, like, we got a lot of parents in my demographic, I'll admit. You know, SEO brought you to the Northernlion channel back in, you know, 2013. Maybe you were like 16, 17 years old, and now you're, you know, 24 and you got a kid, you know? We're kind of kindred spirits in that regard, for sure. But I understand as well, if you're not like a parent, this is the kind of, you're like, hey, stop talking about this, start talking about boob armor. But daycare is crazy, dude. I honestly, like, there needs to be a McDonald's of daycare, in my opinion. By which I don't mean that there should be, like, a daycare that's, like, bad. Because many times I've noted my preference for the fast food chain known as McDonald's. McDonald's Canada, if you are listening, I would love to be a part of your future promotions. I will say, I hope that you could bring back the salads through the drive-thru soon, but regardless. So why do I say this? Why do I say that there's some sort of standardization that needs to happen? Well, like, I get ticked off, all right? Literally, like, people in Vancouver, and I'm sure this is true with, like, many, many places, maybe even, like, every place around the world, but every city at least, but people were applying for daycare when they planned on conceiving their child 9 months before they would even have the child. They would start a minimum 9 months, because, you know, we don't need to get into the nitty-gritty of it, but, you know, not everybody's conceiving in that first month, but probably more like, you know, a year and a half until you send your child to daycare, a year and a half maybe. So they changed it so that you, like, need to actually have the child's birth certificate. to apply. So like right after the birth, like within 24 hours, we applied for the birth certificate. We got it in the mail. We started applying for daycare. I want to be clear, our child is, as of today, 20 days old, and we sent in our applications a couple days ago. On the application, we said, you know, when are we looking for daycare? Ideally, the start point would be around March of 2022, which sounds like is so far in the future right now that is like, I can't even conceive of what the world will look like then. We got automated messages that are like, it looks like you're applying for like daycare for a child between the ages of 1.5 and 3 years. We would like to caution you that in all likelihood, no spaces will open up within the next, you know, literally like within the next 2.5 years. Like, how can there be stories on the news about how like the birth rate in the country is so low, and then like simultaneously daycares are like, it's sweeps week. Sorry, we just can't. It's like, you know, Magic the Gathering cards out there. Like, I don't have any more polluted deltas. I'm sorry. Demand is through the roof. And we were looking into it. We're like, how is this possible? We're like, okay, here's how it works, all right? So there's like a ranked queuing system. It's not first come, first serve, because that would be too fair. First priority goes to children whose siblings are already in the daycare. As much as I want to be annoyed by that, it actually makes a lot of sense. You know, you got, you know, if you've already got little Tommy going to the daycare from 8:30 to 4:30, and you're going to be driving to pick him up at 4:30 anyway, when Jenny's born, I think she should get priority access to the daycare. Second, children of employees of the daycare, which I'll admit is also hard to argue against, because you're like, it would suck pretty bad to be like, I work at the daycare and yet my kid can't even get in. Sorry, honey, I've got to drop you off at daycare before I drive to work at daycare. Third, it varies. Some places, honestly, are like third is given priority to city or like municipal. If you're employed by the provincial government, or if you're employed by the municipal government, then you get a little priority. And then they're like bottom of the barrel, Gen Pop. Are you stupid enough to be having your first kid and applying to daycare like a moron? All right, back of the line. Somebody out there should just set up like the Subway of daycares. You can hire good people. I don't mean it has to be bad. Open up 10,000 locations in North America. Not just for me, but I mean, well, I was going to say if I'm complaining about it, other people will complain about it, but I am oftentimes at the vanguard of complaints, I will admit. Like, I'll be honest, when we take our car in for an oil change, I don't take it into Bill's auto shop. I take it into a multinational chain that has good reviews on Google. I don't want to have to learn about, you know, is Bill going to try to, you know, rip me off here? I would rather just be like, hey, Google has you at a 4.8, and I'm pretty sure you're getting paid a flat hourly rate, so you're not going to try to, you know, bend me over backwards just because I don't know whether an oil change is supposed to cost $20 or $120. And you might be saying, like, oh, this is probably just for those primo daycares. This is for every daycare. And also, it's like $100 a day, dude. It's crazy. Dude, like, I don't even want to talk about it because I've been enjoying kind of like garnering a lot of sympathy for not getting that much rest. Last night, I had that first new parent experience that all new parents have warned us about, where you think your baby died because they slept so well.
Oh.
Like, we went to bed at like 11. I was on first feeding duty, and I woke up at 6 a.m., and I was like, oh, shit. This is going to be a bad day. And then I looked over, and she was just, like, sleeping peacefully in the crib.
Oh,
and I was like, dude, this is... So, I don't know. I'm not saying I expect it to become a habit this soon, but she did mostly sleep through the night last night.
That's nice.
Which is heavy pogs.
I mean, it's like the first couple of weeks where it's the no sleep kind of situation. But now the baby's kind of rolling into being a baby now.
Yeah.
Right? You know?
I would say that's fair.
Did you notice the claws?
Dude, very sharp nails.
Right? See?
You're not wrong. And Kate's been doing a good job of keeping them trimmed.
Yeah. They're actual fucking claws, dude. Like they will cut you.
But definitely, like, I'm way less looking forward to, like, you know, when she has arguments but sucks at arguing. Like, oh, man.
That'll be good.
Like it's gonna be like arguing with Josh. Because I'm very glad that I have some practice, like when I was teaching in Korea, right? Because like I went into it thinking like, oh, adults just don't understand how to talk to kids. You just talk to kids like they're adults. That's fucking stupid. That is not the way that you interact with children. And I learned like 2 days on the job, right? You don't go like, hey, sit down. And they go, why? And you go, because there's consequences. They go, ha 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 ha, and they just run around, right? Like they just want to cause, they want to cause chaos. What you do is go, if you don't sit down in 2 seconds, I can have the principal call your mom. And then they go, oh shit. But apparently, after 4 weeks of life, that's around the time where you can feel a little bit more confident bringing your newborn outside. You don't want to take them out before then too much. I mean, for a number of reasons. One of which I think there is like some, immune reason. But then on top of that, you don't even want to bring like a 3-week-old child outside. I think one of the most stressful things about having a newborn, or at least, this newborn so far, is that it's really like unpredictable. There's 3-hour blocks where she just sleeps, or she's kind of like awake but pleasantly just sort of like examining her surroundings. And then there's 3-hour blocks where she 7 dirty diapers and wants to feed 5 times, So it's not like we're really like, it's a great opportunity for us to get out of the house. But on the other hand, I'm feeling cooped up, which is rare for me, as you've heard me talk about, in this pandemic world. I've been like this, I could do this for the rest of my life. And I could, but I'm feeling a little bit cooped up. I can't even imagine how Kate feels, because it is like, I have left the home briefly to grocery shop. My wife, I genuinely don't know that Kate has left the home for essentially 29 days. Now, it's not like we're bored. We got plenty of stuff to do, don't get me wrong, but just to be able to go out and, like, take a little walk around the neighborhood with the stroller is gonna be sick. The lack of sleep, I'll complain about it a little bit, but in the whole scheme of things, as long as it only... I mean, there's, like, a chronic lack of sleep, yes, but as long as, like, the really bad days are only, like, once every couple of days, it's really nothing to complain about, The one thing I would say to kind of flip that on its axis is that there's like almost a time dilation effect. And I hope this is relatable, but for other, parents out there. Normally, you would think, like, how long does it take you to, like, vacuum the house? It might take you, like, half an hour, right? With a newborn, the amount of time it takes to do a task varies by a coefficient that is somewhere between like 1 and 3. So it could take you half an hour if the newborn stays sleeping. But if the newborn wants to feed, add in another like 15-20 minutes on top. If on top of that, then there's a diaper change. Some diaper changes are like 45 seconds. Some diaper changes are like 5 or 10 minutes, depending on the kind of state you find the diaper in and the clothes that are behind it. And you really do actually like have a decent amount of downtime. But if you're one of those people, and this definitely does describe me, if you try to like budget your time and you're like, okay, I've got to do this, cooking dinner will take, 25 minutes, then eating dinner will take 15 minutes, then I'll do the dishes from that, and that'll take, that, you can throw that out the window. Doing one household task could take you 2 hours. But I'm not that much of like a, this has to happen at this time every single day or I'm going to lose my mind sort of guy. But I can kind of like regress back into university mode where I'm like, it happens when it happens or it doesn't happen. But people are always like, not always, but a lot of people were like, enjoy every second of having a newborn. It doesn't last forever and, you're going to miss it when it's gone. This, I expect to be true to some extent, because you kind of, you miss everything when it's gone. Not to say this isn't particularly special, but I think you know what I mean. People get nostalgic for, like, the old KFC original recipe chicken. So, of course, you're going to be nostalgic for, like, when you have a newborn child, right? But there are people who describe to us that, like, having a newborn is fun. And I'm like, you are insane. There are fun moments and fulfilling moments. But I bring this up not to be like, oh, we were sold like a a false bill of sale. It's more like, you know, if you ever find yourself in a situation where maybe you're having a kid, and then you're like, what the heck? It's not all like laughter and like live, laugh, love, and like, you know, taking 1,000 photos of every single bowel movement to remember it. Everybody's different. The newborn phase, honestly, I think is pretty easy on me, but I think it's a little harder on Kate because, you know, she especially is like very organized, quite regimented, and also likes to keep a clean house. Which, I mean, who doesn't? But, you know, it's a really stressful time for her. It's kind of easier for me because I'm just kind of like the understudy. I'm helping out basically as much as I can, but I'm not the star of the show for right now. You know, on social media and stuff like that, there's almost like toxic positivity, which is not it's not as bad as toxic negativity. But when you see all this sentiment of people like they're always 100% happy and fulfilled at like every single junction in their life, I think it creates like an unrealistic expectation for a lot of people that like, oh, you know, you might feel like you're doing something wrong. You'll be like, you know, my kid crapped all over herself at 4 in the morning and I don't have a smile on my face? Like, what's wrong with me? No, those people are either built differently, Your Honor, or alternatively, they're kind of lying. Because it's kind of gratifying to be, you know, that person who's like, you know, I never get rattled by anything. I'm here to tell you, there's a lot of magic, and there's also a lot of times where you're like, I do sort of look forward to the day where, and it's still early, but where my daughter does not poop her pants, and instead when she has to poop, she goes to the toilet. Like, dude, that is going to be, I don't need a Father's Day. Just give me that day. That's the only Father's Day present I need. Going into it, I was like, bodily functions don't gross me out. The only thing that is annoying, really, is when you're in the middle of changing a diaper and then another bodily fluid comes out on the new diaper. And you're like, excuse me. That's very rude. You couldn't have gotten it all out on the first pass. You had to send out like a joke one. And then when I start to change your diaper, do another one right after. Sometimes we've had, you know, 16 diaper days. We probably had 8 diaper days where we didn't know how lucky we were, right? So, it turns out the Pampers Corporation has a reward program. Every time you buy like a box of diapers, and you go through them like in 10 minutes, but it has like a 15-digit code on it. The 15-digit code, you enter it into the app, it gives you some Pampers coins. If you use the Pampers coins, you can get some free stuff from their online store. Spent about 20 minutes punching in these 15-digit codes. At the end of all this, I was so stoked, dude. You know how many Pampers coins we had? 390. Seems like a lot, right? I go to the Pampers reward store. I'm gonna start by not burying the lead, okay? 390 coins is not enough to purchase anything. It is about half of what you need to purchase the cheapest thing. A $3 gift certificate to the online store. Which is already busted, because it's cheaper to buy them on... It's cheaper to buy the diapers on Amazon than it is to buy them direct through Pampers. But I did give up 20 minutes of rare free time in order to get about half of one $3 gift certificate that can only be used to purchase more diapers. Now, I know you're saying it adds up. You should say what the truth is, which is it's not zero. But it is, like, it's really bad. They don't really have to offer a rewards program, because it's not like you're going to be like, oh, the rewards suck, I'm not going to buy any diapers anymore. You know, they pretty much got, like, a captive audience. I guess you could move to Huggies, or you could go with some cloth diapers, which, like, to be honest, I'm just going to be straight up with you. You know, I consider myself environmentally forward. We're not using cloth diapers. If you are using cloth diapers, you deserve probably not a Nobel Prize, but like a key to the city at least. You're making a sacrifice that I'll just admit I'm not willing to make. But otherwise, like, new parent anecdotes are kind of like boring to anybody that's not related to the baby, I think. I'm always hesitant to give like baby anecdotes like this because people have very strong opinions about parenting. Our baby slept for like 8 to 8.5 hours straight last night, which is absurd. There was a period of time in Isaac episodes, like pretty recently where I was like, we got a great baby. She sleeps all the time. I don't know what's going on, but I think she's just got it all figured out. You know, she sleeps from 10:30 to 5:30. That's not amazing, but it's pretty good. And then she went through a period of almost like a regression where she'd go to bed at 10:30. She'd wake up at like 2. She'd wake up at 5. She'd wake up at 7. She'd wake up at 8:30, you know, and you know, you get used to it, and it doesn't last forever, I guess. But it was not ideal. Because the problem, like, you're supposed to wake up the baby more frequently because the baby's got a tiny little stomach, can only hold, you know, like 150 milliliters maybe at this point, and they digest it super quickly, right? So you're supposed to wake them up overnight. On the other hand, there's also some, you know, methodology that's like, don't wake up your sleeping baby because sleep is where they get, you know, it's good development time. It's also easier on the parents, but, you know, the brain is growing during that time as well. So, but I will say it's pretty expensive, but if you have the means and you're a new parent, for peace of mind, we have this sock that's called an owlet. And I don't know the efficacy of it, so I'm kind of, it's a bit of a blind trust sort of situation. Source, dude, just trust me. But I believe that it accurately monitors the baby's heart rate, which I believe 100%. It's supposed to also actively monitor, like, in case there's blood hypoxia, like they're not getting enough oxygen to their brain, or just in the supply to begin with. That's where I'm a little bit more dubious, but I'll admit that I also, like, what do I know, you know? I'm not a medical expert in this sort of stuff, so, or in any sort of stuff for that matter. Even if it never plays the alarm, which we've been lucky enough to not have it play the alarm for us ever, that is like, you know, DEFCON 1, I would recommend it as a purchase just for peace of mind. If you're the kind of person that is not going to wake up every morning and your first thought is going to be like, let me see if my newborn has lived through the night, maybe you don't need it. If you're the kind of person like me that, like, without this device, you would look over like every 35 seconds to make sure, you know, her stomach's still rising and falling, then I would definitely suggest at least looking into it. Again, I don't think it's a scam. It might not be 100% effective, but it's one of those things where, like, if something quells your anxiety, you don't really want to look into it and potentially ruin that placebo effect. So honestly, if you're selling me nothing, but it works, then as far as I'm concerned, you got me. I'm giving you a 5-star review. Since talking about baby stuff, dude, there's a lot of people, and I appreciate it, who are like, hey, but I haven't commented much in the past, but, you know, with all the baby anecdotes, just wanted to let you know, like, you know, here's a good piece of advice. It's been very helpful. But I was thinking, like, at what age do you start holding a person responsible for their own actions, right? Obviously, when, like, a baby cries, you don't go, what a selfish baby, right? You go, that's what babies do. And then when a toddler acts up, usually you have the same level of, like, awareness of that. You're like, they're a toddler, you know, the brain's not fully formed. The worst you might do is be like, ooh, the parents shouldn't let them get away with that. And I think that holds true for children, like, all the way up into, like, middle school age, right? Like, if somebody's kind of an a-hole as a 12-year-old, you don't go like, oh, what, that 12-year-old kid's a jerk. Most of it, as an adult at least, you wouldn't say that. You would be like, that kid has, like, some terrible parents that are setting a horrible example. I don't know if that's true 100% of the time, but I think that's the conventional wisdom for sure. So then, I don't know, when you're, like, 16, if you're kind of an a-hole, I mean, obviously I'm not talking about, like, criminal level stuff here. People are like, oh, that's just how teenagers are, which maybe we shouldn't accept, like, that kind of, it depends on the behavior. I'm not trying to get on, like, a horrible slippery slope, but you get what I mean. There are people I know, like, in my life that are at the adult age, you know, in their 20s or 30s. And, like, the worst, and I don't mean that in a rude way, but the worst aspects of their personality, they actually have, like, genuine excuses for. You know, they're like, I have this problem that I suffer with because of this that happened in my childhood. My parents always taught me this, which is a warped version of what the real world is like, so this is why I react like this in these situations, and, you know, this is the reason, like, I you know, you get the idea. Because you're always kind of, you know, working on this model that you've built in progress based on the examples that you've had in your life, right? I know my own, you know, the things people find annoying about me. Like, I can be very, like, dismissive. Moving on. We have been ordering, I mean, we've been having a lot of our meals, honestly, taken care of by my mom because she's here. And it's been pretty sweet, let me tell you. And I don't say this to be glib or just to be humorous. It's very nice to just have someone around that just cooks your meals for you. You can see why, like, the super rich will hire, like, a personal chef. I like cooking, don't get me wrong. Time is at a little bit of a premium with the baby, so, you know, we have all these meal prep things that come in. Sometimes you're like, I don't know if I could make, baked pesto salmon tonight. You know, it's gonna take 25 minutes just to preheat the oven, and then we gotta give her a bath tonight, and yada, yada, yada. Last night, my mom was like, oh, I'll just cook that. Of course, we said thank you. I'm just saying, it's a, it's a beautiful situation. You know, the first little bit that she was here, I was like, I don't want you to do any chores. Are you crazy? Like, we're grown adults, even with the baby. We're like, having a baby's not that hard. Now we're starting to get a little fatigued from time to time, and we're like, yeah, go ahead, cook it. Thank you. That would be nice. All my mom wants to do is help us out around the house, and in exchange, I have to hear about all of the murders that have ever happened in my hometown. I think it's, honestly, I like hearing about them, so it's a pretty good trade. We had our first experience with vaccinating our daughter yesterday. So for anybody that's unfamiliar, at least this is the way it works in BC, you get like 4 vaccines at 2 months old. Some kind of diphtheria, some kind of like hepatitis vaccine, some kind of pneumonia vaccine, and then there's like a stomach flu one, just via this like sugary syrup. The first one was not so bad. I would say she reacted like better than expected. The second one, she reacted pretty well. The third one, her face turned from an oval into a square. Like her jaw got 2 right angles on it, and she opened her mouth to scream, but she screamed like with such incredible volume that no sound came out for a second. I was like, oh no. But she got over it. I'm very proud of her. And especially they're like, you know, she might get a fever tomorrow, but like, just give her some baby Tylenol. And I was like, are you insane? You're giving my baby a shot that's gonna give her a fever? Not in an anti-vax sort of way, because it is, you know, very much not who I am. By the way, I was watching The Masked Singer last night for the first time ever. People, what is it? Why Jenny McCarthy? Like, I just have to ask, like, why does she, like, you could, there's any number of, like, talentless hacks you could have judge singers on an American reality TV show. Why does it have to be Jenny McCarthy? I'm sorry, it's very judgmental, but she has set back, like, the study of epidemiology by, like, 70 years. I mean, if she's allowed to have strong opinions on things that are, you know, medicine, which, spoilers, not her area of expertise, I think I'm allowed to have strong opinions about entertainment, which I've dabbled in the past. Anyway, long story short, don't like that lady very much. You can't find a less problematic Jenny McCarthy analog out there? The idea that you're giving your baby a vaccine, but that there might be, like, a temporary consequence, that for you yourself, like if the doctor was like, yeah, I don't know, you might get a fever, but if you get a fever, just take a Tylenol. I'd be like, yeah, of course, stop wasting my time. You know, even if a doctor gave me a shot and was like, I don't know, there's like a 1% chance your foot will fall off, I'd be like, come on, I gotta get out of here before the traffic picks up, you know? But that doctor was like, just so you know, there's like a 0.00001% chance that your baby might be slightly uncomfortable. And I'm like, listen here, okay? This is unacceptable. This child shall never face consequences or side effects at all. I hate to say it, and you're not gonna like what I'm about to say, but young, single male opinions tend to be a little bit disproportionate to what the actual situation is. Like, anytime there's and I always go back to this example, but anytime there's like a crying baby on a flight, people are like, they should just form their own airline just for babies. And you're like, are you kidding me? That's like a $1 trillion project. It's the same shit. Like, this is like my favorite joke format right now. People will be like, society's too soft these days, and then a literal human infant is like, man, and they're like, what? Are you crazy? Should be illegal to have a baby on an airplane. She slept from 11 p.m. until about 8 a.m. It's like better sleep than the average adult. Like, it was actually one of those, like, and I hate to say it, I'm not sure if you're supposed to do this, but it was one of those things where, like, I woke up and then I woke the baby up on purpose. Because normally the baby gets me up at like 6:30 or something like that, maybe 7 at the latest. I woke up at like 7:45 and the baby was sleeping peacefully, and I just sat around for 15 minutes and I was like, all right, baby, come on, I got to start my day. And before you're like, you're not supposed to do that, oh, spare me. You know how often she wakes me up? This is fair and equitable. It's kind of like a rude awakening, though, you know? Like, as a baby, you're in the crib, you're sleeping or just looking up at the ceiling, you know, wondering what life's all about. And then a creature that's like 10 times your size, reaching their hands in and like picking you up and lifting your whole body out of your bed. Can you imagine if alarm clocks for adults worked that way? like a big Gundam picked you up and was like, time to go to work. Kate and I are pretty blessed to be able to, you know, work from home, to make our own hours. You know, we're more able meansed than my parents were at the same period. And it's still like, it's a little stressful, you know? So there's a lot of work that's involved, and you don't always feel like, you know, from like a human standpoint, you don't always feel at your best. You're not like, oh yeah, today I'm like, I feel 10 out of 10 today, you know? It does give you, I think, a greater appreciation for your parents as well. I don't know, the flip side might be if you feel like your parents did a terrible job, then maybe when you have a kid, you're like, this isn't so hard, what were they complaining about all the time? I hope he doesn't jack off, or baby shark doo 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 doo. Baby shark doo 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 doo. Baby shark doo 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 doo. Baby shark, mommy shark doo 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 doo. Mommy shark doo 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 doo. Mommy shark doo 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 doo. Mommy shark, daddy shark doo 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 doo. Daddy shark doo 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 doo. Daddy shark doo 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 doo. Daddy shark.